allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bishop Powell, lead us in prayer.
Hey, let's open up with a word of prayer. Lord, I want to thank you so much for this village, for this town, God, for these people that care about it and want to make it the best it can possibly be. And Lord, before we move forward, we want to invite your presence into this place and into this conversation. So God, we ask that you would give wisdom, give understanding, give us sound judgment, and give us discretion as all of these things are discussed. Lord, we love you and we give you all the glory. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight. Just a quick reminder, if you would like to speak this evening, if you would, please sign up on the sign-in sheet. That way we know who intends to speak. I'd like to take a moment and just obviously introduce ourselves for those that don't know. We are missing our chairperson, Mr. John Wilson. Unfortunately, he was taken ill this afternoon and is super upset about not being able to be here. My name is Kristen Steinley. I'm the vice chair, and so I am going to be leading tonight's meeting, and I ask a little bit of patience as this is my first time doing that. Mr. Rusty Durbin is also a trustee on the board, and then Kathy Brannick is our fiscal officer. So this is obviously a special meeting that was called to have a public hearing on the zoning case involving the parcel on State Route 125 near Burke Road. The parcel is currently zoned as agricultural, and the request is to rezone to commercial C3 zoning. All right, so we'll call the public hearing officially to order. It is 7:03. I just went through and identified the folks from the board here. Also present is going to be Mr. Shelby Baird, zoning inspector, Ms. Julia Carney, counsel for the township, Mr. George Pattison, who will be representing the applicant, Axel Enterprises. The hearing is being video recorded. The video and approved minutes will be available on Tate Township's website or by contacting the Tate Township fiscal officer. So when you speak, we'll ask that you come up to the podium. Please be sure to speak in the microphone so that everyone can hear and that our recording can pick it up as well. So for purposes of formality, this is zoning case 1794 SB, Axel Enterprises request for a zoning map amendment, which is a rezoning of 11.523 acres on State Route 125 from Zone A to Zone C3. Again, for formality's sake, the following legal notice for this hearing was printed and published in the Claremont Sun on January 16th, 2025. And the application packet was placed for public viewing at the Bethel Tate Fire Department on January 18th, 2025. An attempt to send notice of this meeting by U.S. mail to adjacent property owners and other interested parties as requested was also made. The legal notice was also posted to the Tate Township website on January 18th, 2025, 3:23 p.m. The legal notice read, notice is hereby given that the Tate Township Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing, zoning case 1794 SB, an application for the amendment to the Tate Township zoning map submitted by Axel Enterprises of 4026 Buxton Road, Batavia, Ohio, 43103. The proposed amendment is to rezone parcel ID 323016A 055, consisting of 11.523 acres, owned by Gary Reed and Kathleen A. Gregory from A to C3. Public hearing will be held on January 29th, 2025 at 7 p.m., with the application being made available for public viewing on January 18th, 2025 by 8:30 a.m. at the Tate Township Fire Department, 149 Northeast Street, Bethel, Ohio, 45106. And it was signed by our fiscal officer, Kathy. The packet of information, or the exhibits that we will be considering tonight, in which have been marked exhibits, are H1, H2, and T1 through T8. Exhibit H1 is the legal notice and proof of publication. H2 will be the sign-in sheet from tonight's meeting. Exhibit T1 is the minutes of the Zoning Commission public hearing held on December 3rd, 2024. Exhibit T2 are the minutes of the Zoning Commission public hearing continued on December 20th, 2024. Exhibit T3 is the statement received from an adjacent property owner at the Zoning Commission public hearing on December 20th, 2024. Exhibit T4 is the Zoning Commission Resolution ZC25001, recommendation to the Board of Trustees. Exhibit T5 is the full Zoning Commission packet, inclusive of all subordinate exhibits and attachments contained therein. Exhibit T6 is an email received on January 23rd, 2025 from an interested party. Exhibit T7 is an email received on January 23rd, 2025 from the applicant. And Exhibit T8 is an updated architectural renderings received on January 27th, 2025 from the applicant. So at this time, we'll move forward with swearing in those who intend to speak tonight. So anyone who has signed in and intends to speak tonight, we ask that you please stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated. Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll move forward with the staff report. So, Mr. Baird, if you would, please present an overview of the application, including the recommendations of the Tate Township Zoning Commission, the Claremont County Regional Planning Commission, and the Zoning Department.
The application in front of us, consideration this evening, 1794 SP, rezone from A zone or A district to C3 district. The final application was accepted on October 17th and forwarded to the County Planning Commission. And to the Tate Township Zoning Commission. The County Planning Commission hearing was held on November 21st at the County Engineer's Office. Summarization of the Planning Commission report identified the parcel address, parcel designation, and the acreage, and the request to summarizing the request to rezone. Identified the land use of the subject property currently being agricultural and vacant. No other relevant history was noted by the County Planning Commission staff for the parcel. I'll read this part in. Tate Township, this is from the staff report, the Tate Township Zoning Resolution, Article 6 Zoning District Regulations, goes over all the regulations for all zoning districts within a Tate Township. The map amendment is requesting to become C3. This is the most intense commercial zoning district in the township and conditionally permits land uses that are permitted also in the C1 and C2 zoning districts. The subject property is located on State Route 125, approximately 0.36 miles. Another direction of this parcel is C1, C2, and C3 zone land. This area is located adjacent to other vacant agricultural land, as well as residential and industrial commercial land use. The land surrounding the subject property is primarily agricultural and residential, with a creek surrounding the property. Tate Township does not have a comprehensive land use plan, and therefore the zoning resolution and zoning map should be the guiding documents to use to review this request for a rezoning map amendment. Tate Township is in the process of working on a comprehensive land use plan in order to prepare for development in the future. There have been efforts to do this in the past, however, previous land use plans were never fully adopted by the township. Based on conversations with township staff, commercial development is something that should be occurring along State Route 125. As there are other commercial zoning districts in the area, in the vicinity, and the future preferred land uses along State Route 125 are commercial in nature, this can be seen as compatible with surrounding land uses. There is an extract from the Tate Township zoning resolution for the commercial C3 district. In reference to site access, access is proposed from State Route 125, which is the only access point for the parcel of land. There are no additional access points proposed as part of this application. Based on drawings submitted to the township, there will be an access point in a parking lot for a proposed building. Development character. The proposed development for the construction of a construction business could be considered compatible with the existing area due to the industrial commercial land use in the vicinity and the possibility of the future land use plan desiring commercial development on State Route 125. The proposed use will be compatible with the C3 zoning district, as it is the commercial district that allows the highest intensity of uses. Surrounding area is agricultural, residential, and includes a property with an industrial commercial land use based on aerial photos. Based on this and future desires of a commercial corridor along State Route 125, proposed development would be acceptable in this area. Agency review and notifications were requested from the Community and Economic Development Department, County Engineer's Office, County Water Resources Department, County Water Management and Sediment Control, and the Ohio Department of Transportation. The referral agency's comments were from Community and Economic Development. Any future development of this site must comply with any and all regulations from Claremont County, Tate Township, the state of Ohio, or any other applicable agency. County Engineer's comments. ODOT should also be consulted regarding potential impacts and/or access to State Route 125. Our office has no other objections or comments to offer at this time. Water Resources Department, the staff of the Planning Commission have not received any comments from them. Water Management and Sediment Control, either. Neither of those agencies have responded by the time of the County Planning Commission hearing. ODOT comments were as follows. Our Department of Transportation does not have any concerns if it will be his headquarters for his construction company. If there will be additional commercial development, they will need to complete a traffic study and follow ODOT's State Highway Access Management Manual for a change of use. That concludes the comments of other agencies. The staff analysis of the Claremont County Planning Commission. Following a comprehensive analysis, staff has evaluated Tate Township zoning map amendment case 1794. SB was missing from their presentation, and its request to amend the zoning designation of a parcel ID 323016A055, consisting of plus or minus 11.523 acres from the A agricultural district to C3 commercial district for the purposes of operating a construction business in Tate Township. It is unknown whether the application is in alignment with the future land use goals of the township due to there not being a formal land use plan. The area is primarily agricultural and residential, and the proposed development could be compatible with the surrounding land due to proximity to other C zoning districts. It is important to recognize that the map amendment of the land will permit everything that is permitted and conditionally permitted in the C3 zoning district, and not only the development that is being proposed. Staff recommendation. Based on the staff analysis in the following report, the following motion is recommended. to recommend approval with conditions of the Tate Township zoning map amendment case 1794 and its request to amend the zoning designation of the parcel. It's listed out. Any future development, this is our conditions, any future development of the site must comply with any and all regulations from Claremont County, Tate Township, State of Ohio, or any other applicable agency. With the conclusion of that hearing, the County Planning Commission made a motion and approved the staff's recommendations for approval with the conditions stated. Upon the conclusion of that, the zoning commission received the recommendations of the county via the staff report, and the zoning commission hearing. Correct date. Zoning commission hearing was held on December 3rd, 2024, and it was continued and further considered on December 20th, 2024. Zoning Commission's case review. At that commission meeting, I presented them my following analysis as staff for the Zoning Commission. The applicant is presently under a purchase contract on the subject property with the current owners and is requesting that the property be rezoned from A, agricultural, to C3, commercial. The applicant states that while his current development plan for his business headquarters would not specifically need C3 authorized uses, he is concerned about limiting his options for future development should his commercial needs for the property change, or limiting use options for a potential future property owner other than the applicant for that to occur. The applicant has not indicated any consideration for the non-commercial development of the subject property. Current property owners have provided their consent to the zoning change and to allowing the applicant to proceed with this request. All properties directly adjoining to the subject property on the northern side of State Route 125 are currently zoned A. Except for the old cemetery, all of the adjoining properties are developed as residential home sites. The applicant has presented that due to the natural topography of the parcel and that the shared property lines are separated either by Poplar Creek or State Route 125, again accepting the cemetery, that there will be ample buffering of the proposed commercial activities from the surrounding residential uses. Tate Township does not currently have a fully and formally adopted comprehensive land use and economic development plan. As such, while there is no official guidance to be used other than the Tate Township zoning resolution to apply to the applicant's request, it is important for the Zoning Commission to consider that there is active effort being put forth by the township to implement a comprehensive plan. In 1997, Tate Township undertook to develop a land use and development plan, which was stopped short of formal adoption due to unknown reasons. The focus of that planning effort was on the State Route 125 corridor between the western border of Tate Township and the village of Bethel. In that planning effort, the subject property was in an area identified for office commercial development. Based on that information, the applicant's request is not inconsistent with the past long-term planning efforts put forth by Tate Township. Due to the location of the subject property on State Route 125, there do not appear to be any issues that could impact visibility or intrude on the necessary clear sight distances for traffic safety. Zoning requirements and ODOT traffic safety guidelines will need to be maintained as the site develops to ensure the continued lack of impairment of the clear sight distances for State Route 125. The application was also forwarded to the Bethel State Fire Department requesting any comments or feedback. Unfortunately, due to short notice of the request being sent to the fire department, those comments were not available at the time I prepared the report. If the fire department provides any comments, I will provide that information to the Zoning Commission as soon as possible. Then I have a summary again of the Claremont County staff analysis and activity of the County Planning Commission. Zoning Inspector's recommendation to the Zoning Commission as follows. Is the opinion of the Tate Township Zoning Inspector that the zoning map amendment to rezone parcel ID 323016A055 plus or minus 11.523 acres in its entirety should be approved based solely on the information supplied with the application. Careful attention should be paid by the zoning commission to fully document any recommended conditions or stipulations the commission may intend to make a part of the commission's official recommendation to the Board of Trustees. That was the conclusion of my summary to the zoning commission, and which brings us now to where we are. The zoning commission, at the conclusion of the December 20th hearing, motion to approve the application without any modifications. Further, they did formalize that motion into a resolution. I'll read that to you now. Tate Township Zoning Commission met in regular session on the 7th day of January 2025. The following members present: Betty Armacost, Chair; Tiffany Riddle; Alicia Blankenship; David Zimmerman. Ms. Riddle moved for adoption of the following resolution. Resolution recommending approval of zoning case 1794 SP. Whereas the zoning commission held a public hearing on December 3rd, 2024 to consider the application, the recommendation of the Clermont County Regional Planning Commission, to hear public input on, debate among the zoning commission, and to make a recommendation on the application for a zoning map amendment to rezone parcel 323016A055 from Zone A to Zone C3. And whereas the zoning commission determined that additional information was necessary from the applicant and scheduled a continuation of debate on December 20th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And whereas the applicant submitted the requested site plan survey and an additional letter of explanation to the zoning commission prior to the continuation on December 20th, 2024. And whereas the zoning commission accepted the additional supplied information, continued debate on the application, and passed a motion to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment to the Tate Township Board of Trustees. And now therefore be it resolved by the Tate Township Zoning Commission, with at least 3/5 of its members hereto concurring as follows. Section 1, that in consideration of the application, staff report from the Tate Township Zoning Inspector, the recommendation of the Clermont County Planning Commission, all being attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein, and that upon hearing testimony from the applicants, joining property owners or parties of interest, and Section 3, that upon the closure of debate by motion to recommend approval, that this resolution certifies the recommendation to the Tate Township Board of Trustees to adopt the zoning map amendment to rezone parcel 323016A055 entirely from Zone A to Zone C3. And Section 4, that the Tate Township Zoning Commission do hereby find and determine that all formal actions relative to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this commission, and that all deliberations of this commission which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with all applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Zimmerman seconded the foregoing resolution, and upon roll call, the vote was unanimous. January 9th, that information was forwarded to the board, and we moved forward to where we are now. There is some additional communications that I would like to read out. We've received a couple of communications after the application packet was prepared, and also at the end of the December 20th hearing by the Zoning Commission, there was a letter presented from a adjoining property owner. I'll read that one first. This is marked Exhibit T3. I'm glad this meeting has continued tonight. Thank you. Many residents voiced their concerns at the last meeting. We spoke of traffic, noise, light pollution, and the integrity of Poplar Creek. I also have concerns with the lack of input from county agencies. Although I do understand that Clermont Soil and Water doesn't typically review requests for zoning changes. In this instance, I believe it's beneficial for all. Our fire department has already stated that it would be recommended to add a hydrant close closer on site, especially if adding multiple buildings. ODOT's lack of concern only further proves that they do not participate in monitoring their own safety corridor, which is anything but safe on this stretch of 125. While we understand updating the previous comprehensive plan from 1997, which encourages economic development and restructuring of our zoning resolution, things have changed significantly in this area since the 1997 concept began. There are now homes to consider, built in 1998 and 99 on land sold by Gary Reed, the person selling the land to Axel Enterprises for the proposed commercial building. This also brings up the overlap of boundaries that separate the village of Bethel from the residents of Tate Township, who choose not to live within the village. With this stretch of land merged on the 125 corridor, the village and the township will at some point connect on 125. We didn't choose to live in the village or within a commercial area. For consideration, Mr. Ernest owns approximately 500 feet of the road frontage of this parcel and has approximately 60 feet of setbacks. This parcel in question is landlocked by Mr. Ernest's land, the old cemetery, and the property on Poplar Creek. Mr. Ernest allows an entry point for agricultural consideration, and he would have to allow an easement on his land for the proposed development in question. Was this entry purpose predefined in writing? And is there a written contract allowing easement through this land for this development? This needs to be addressed with the provided site plan. When we spoke after the previous meeting on the 3rd, Mr. Ernest let me know that Gary Reed promised Mr. Brown, who has recently passed on, that Reed and Brown had a verbal agreement that the land in question would be used for only agricultural or residential purposes, such as Burke Road has been used. I find this to be very dishonorable to Mr. Brown's legacy. Will a restrictive covenant or contractual agreements limit how Tyler uses this land and landscape, such as advertising signage near the highway? And will this signage be eliminated, creating further light pollution to residents? I expressed to Tyler after the last meeting that this isn't personal and no one has proposed to him moving or growing the headquarters for his business. But this isn't the right location to do this. How can we be sure what the additional 3 structures will become in the future? If this zoning change is allowed, we have no recourse for change. The land could be used for multiple things if someone changes their mind or ownership changes after rezoning is granted. This only creates more hardship for residents and the integrity of the land in Poplar Creek. This parcel of land is not reasonably beneficial or economically viable. It will advance the market value decline for the residents and does not intend to provide more than 20 jobs. You can't have economic development and growth with only 20 or less in employee. This defeats the basic principle of economic growth. It isn't right to take the rights of others to benefit some, denying the use and enjoyment of their surrounding properties. The 14th Amendment of our Constitution states that we cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. The concept of property rights expands to include the stewardship of natural resources and the responsibilities associated with the use and preservation concerning environmental issues. The right against environmental degradation is a property right. People cannot use their property in ways that damage their neighbor's property, which encroaches on the property rights of others. Classic law of nuisance and risk. The powers of government must be derived from and consistent with those rights. I believe that council needs to review the details. The laws bind the state as well as the people. I hope the board considers all of this tonight before making the zoning change decision or recommendation. As residents, we will follow up with our elected board of trustees for consideration of our concerns before the final rezoning approval or dissent. Amy Hutchison Campbell, 12/20/2024. And this reminded me of some information I meant to, that I put to the zoning commission that I forgot to grab when I was reading off the summary. There was a supplemental document that I had for the zoning commission hearing on the 3rd. That supplemental information was comments received from the Bethel State Fire Department. Fire Department has no objections to the property being rezoned, but offers the following observation. Closest hydrant to this location is on south side of 125 and just east of Southside Auto. The hydrant is 884 feet from where the current entrance is to that lot. This does not count for laying hose across the highway, which would probably be about another 50 feet, which brings us to 934 feet. We carry 1,075 feet of hose on our trucks, which really only gets us into the lot. The ideal situation would be for them to add a hydrant either closer to this site or on the property once they start building, especially if adding multiple buildings. These discussions can take place once the building plans are laid out. I also did inquire and receive comments from the Clermont County Soil and Water Conservation District as follows. Clermont Soil and Water does not typically review requests for zoning changes, usually only if requested by the Township or County Planning Department. In general, we recommend that a vegetated tree shrub buffer be left along waterways, especially one the size of Poplar Creek. However, this is not a requirement of the county's water management and sediment control regulations. A couple of the most important reasons for leaving a buffer along a stream are flood management and bank stabilization. If the stream corridor is left in a natural state, nothing is damaged when the stream does flood. Also, when a stream is allowed to spread out in the floodplain, the water slows and a lot of the erosive energy is reduced. Further, the deep roots of trees and shrubs help hold the soil in place. As stated previously by Water Management Sediment Control, any future development will be reviewed by the County Building Inspection Department for compliance with the WNSC regulations. This includes a stormwater management plan that provides detention and treatment of stormwater runoff and considers the 100-year storm event. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of those comments. My recommendations on the matter have not changed from my recommendations to the Zoning Commission for the reasons that I've previously stated. Not really any reason in the zoning resolution to say why we can't do it, but that's not the only consideration. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Okay, so at this.
Oh, I'm sorry. There were some more emails. My apologies. My apologies. I'm so sorry. Back to them.
Sir, I also had some people send me some correspondence to deliver tonight. Do you want to read those, or how do I submit those? Or do you want, which it was stated that correspondence would be part of the public record and read. I mean, I plan to read them, they're short, but
Okay.
is that okay?
Let me just confirm. I don't know who, when you indicated that they would be read, somebody let you know that they would be read, or?
Oh, that was on something that I received, and it said, I get these notices, it was an email. And my Kelly Fogwell lives in New Orleans, and she would also call on the phone and speak and read her letter. But she can't be here, obviously, because she's in New Orleans. So she's a property owner.
She is a property owner?
She's a property owner, right. And also.
So we can accept them. We can accept the correspondence as exhibits here tonight as part of the record, and we don't need to read them into the record because they'll become a part of it.
Okay, can he read them the way he's reading these?
Well, I think that at this point we have a solid enough summary as to the extent of what has happened. So we'll just accept all of those pieces into the record, and the letters that you have to submit, we'll take those into the record.
How can they be made public then? Will they be on the website? How can other people read them?
I'd like to hear them myself.
I think the purpose, though, for tonight's meeting is to provide information to the board for the board to consider in its decision making. And if you provide that to us, we'll be able to do that without necessarily having to do that.
Okay, I would like the community to hear that also, and Axel also. So I would like to have a venue for that, and it would be nice, because it was stated that correspondence that you could submit it. I don't know where that one is. It would be read.
Yeah, and you absolutely can submit it and we'll accept it into the record. How long
I
is
think you
this?
said it was gonna be, could be read.
Yeah, how long were they?
Oh, a page, no. A couple of them were very compelling. Let me just kind of summarize them at the end. No.
Yeah, as part of the time during the speaking, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. So obviously we have the additional emails that'll be part of anything else to add to?
They're listed there, exhibits T6 and T7. And then the T8 that you all received in your packet.
Okay, so then at this time, we'll be moving forward with the applicant's presentation. So if the applicant and or the applicant's representative will now please step forward to present their testimony on the application. The applicant will address all comments to the board, and there will be no debate between the applicant and the public.
Would you like these sign-in sheets?
All right, so if you would please state your name for the record and confirm that you've been sworn in, please.
My name is George E. Pattison. I'm an attorney. My office is at 285 East Main Street in Batavia. I've been practicing in Claremont County for quite a while, I guess, at this point. I represent the applicant. My remarks are going to be very short. It's nice to see a project that's so cleanly done and well received and well buffered. There's no project that couldn't be better buffered somehow or another, or some possible change made in it, but this seems to be about as clean a project as could be. There's been some individual opinions that the zoning inspector read. We're not here to take issue with individuals or individual opinions. We're here to present a well developed plan for the benefit of this community. Mr. Gibbs is a member of this community, and he has a further presentation on this issue. I'm gonna just let him do it.
Thanks, George. You need my name and stuff.
Please, if you would.
Tyler Gibbs, 3005 South Banham Road, Bethel, Ohio. Our business resides at 4026 Buxton Road, Batavia, Ohio. Thank you for listening tonight. My name's Ty Gibbs. I'm the president of Axel Building Group, formerly known as Axel Enterprises. There is an email in your packet explaining the name change. It is legally changed now with the state of Ohio. Same ownership, same EIN, same address. Just did a name change to better encompass what we do. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, participating in a public hearing about an exciting project that is being presented in Tate Township. First, I would like to provide an overview to you guys about our organization. Axel Building Group is a holding company that owns several subsidiaries within the construction industry. Our subsidiaries specialize in residential remodeling, facility maintenance, commercial, municipal, and medical construction, as along with residential development. We currently employ 17 individuals. We have 3 offer letters out there as well to get us back to 20, and we indirectly employ another 15 to 20 individuals. We've outgrown our current headquarters in Batavia and have decided to move and build a new state-of-the-art headquarters. This new facility will house our office staff, store materials, equipment, vehicles, and we will have in-house equipment to build things such as cabinets, trims, doors in the future. My vision for our headquarters is different than most developers. While commercial developers often prioritize maximizing land use, our goal is to create a corporate campus with ample green space. This 11-plus acre site will only be developed on 1 or 2 acres, leaving the rest as natural areas. I understand that there's concerns have been raised in previous meetings and also on public forums about this development. I want to assure you that all concerns have been addressed by the regulating entities. However, it is important to highlight why some of these regulating entities do not have any concerns with the development. Wastewater. The surrounding creek, Poplar Creek, has a quality monitoring station 1 mile downstream from this property. This station assesses potential pollution issues and notifies the proper entity accordingly should a problem arise. To mitigate any concerns of runoff, we will be replacing the dirt soybean field with grass, which would create a natural solution to any potential erosion or runoff. Traffic. ODOT has reviewed this application and expressed no concerns about traffic as long as we develop this property into the proposed use. However, it is important to note that the majority of our employees and clients will be commuting from west to east in the morning and east to west in the afternoon, which is opposite of the traffic congestion in this community. Adjoining properties. This property borders 7 other A-zone properties. The buffer separating this property from 5 of those A-zone properties is 250 to 300 feet of mature dense woodline in a large creek. One property is across a 4-lane highway and has large mature pine trees separating the residence from the street. The last adjoining property is a vacant piece of land that is only touching this property by about a 400-foot flag lot and is 100% in the highway easement. That property shares the majority of its property line with the sewer transfer station that is at the bottom of the hill there. Noise and light pollution. I would like to reiterate that this is an office and storage facility. The largest culprit of noise pollution is the fact that we all have or are buying properties that are on a 4-lane highway. The light on our facility will all be downlighting and shielded per the county requirements for outdoor lighting on commercial buildings. The reality is the environment, infrastructure, and overall value of land in this area will see improvements because of this project. Changing a zoning code to commercial can bring significant benefits to a community by fostering economic growth, increasing property values, and creating new opportunities for business development. Commercial zoning allows for the establishment of retail shops, restaurants, offices, and other businesses that generate jobs, boost local tax revenues, and enhance access to goods and services for residents. Additionally, it can stimulate urban revitalization by attracting investment, improving infrastructure, and making the area more vibrant and appealing. This shift can also contribute to a more diverse and resilient local economy, ultimately enhancing the overall quality of life for this community. Not only are we as a corporate entity proposing to spend well over $1 million in this township and increase the property taxes on this property by tens of thousands of dollars, but we also have a current and prior invested interest in this community. One of our subsidiaries, Maddox Development, has a large investment interest in this township and in the village and other surrounding communities. In the past 24 months, we have successfully developed over $3 million worth of single-family homes in this community on already developed lots. In the next 18 months, we will develop another $3 million worth of single-family homes and duplexes on already developed lots. This has equated to close to $100,000 in new property taxes alone in this area. On top of new property taxes, the average economic impact of just one family moving to a community is approximately $10,000 per year in local revenues. Our company is responsible for more than a dozen new families to this community already, and we'll have a dozen more in the next 2 years. This community is not merely a location we seek to relocate our business. It is a community I've personally chosen to raise my family in. My wife was raised here. Our children will attend the local schools here. We regularly use the waterways that flow through this community. My wife and I own a grain farm here, and both of our parents reside here. I am confident in asserting that no one desires to see this community succeed more than myself and my family. I genuinely believe that the positive impact this development will have on Tate Township is an opportunity this community cannot afford to lose. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, I think we'll move to sort of a question and answer session between Axel and the trustees. Yeah, would you mind, just so we can make sure that everyone can hear? I think that would be great. Do you want to start? Okay. So thank you first for coming tonight. Thank you for your interest in the township. I've carefully reviewed everything that's been submitted, your application, all of that stuff. but I do have some questions I sort of want to just walk through so I can
Sure.
make sure I understand.
Yep.
Obviously, one of the first questions I have was a little bit about your corporation, so you've gone through that. I appreciate that. You had mentioned that Axel Enterprises employs 17 people at the moment directly. Do you anticipate all 17 of those now working out of the headquarters?
Not the current 17, no.
Okay.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that are regularly at the office currently.
Okay.
We will obviously be hiring future office staff.
Okay, so you're anticipating that at the headquarters, should it be constructed approximately 7 employees plus whatever?
Initially, we have 15 offices in the plans.
And then I know you've talked a little bit about sort of how you see the campus. You've mentioned like an actual campus, and I believe your application mentioned multiple future commercial buildings. When we talk about the sort of future campus that you're looking towards, can you, to the best of your knowledge, sort of describe what you're envisioning at this point?
I think it's important to point out that this development is pretty much an unbuildable site. There is 1 to 2 acres at the top of the hill that you can put buildings on. Everything else is in the floodplain, and you will not get financing to put a building on down there. So we are proposing to build. You can see our rendering here. That is the main building right there. This will all be foyer. All this is offices. All that is warehouse. And I changed the renderings from the original plan to the new because it was better suited for this lot.
Okay.
The only other place we could put a building is back behind it. That's a 40 by 80 storage building. That would match. It would match the first building.
And is that reflected in the latest round of renderings that you've submitted?
Yes.
Okay.
And on the survey that the zoning commission approved, it's on there as well.
Okay, so obviously this building would be the larger building. I'm looking at Exhibit
Yep.
8, right?
Yep.
So that would be the larger building in the front, and then you would have what looks to be either 1 or 2 buildings behind that. Is that
One
correct?
building
Just
behind
one?
it. Yep.
And what is, obviously the front is office. What is that second building in the back? What do you anticipate that
Storage.
being used? Storage.
Yep.
The equipment you're talking about putting there, what type of equipment, what's a GVW?
So what we don't do heavy equipment. We have skid steers and mini excavators where they're hauled with F-250, so they're below 10,000 pounds. So we've got skid steers, mini X's, equipment trailers, several F-250s. It wouldn't be out of our realm to have a dump truck. We don't have any semi trucks. Nobody in our operation has CDLs or anything like that.
Are you anticipating storing those kinds of things in that building or outside?
Outside.
And where if you're looking at the topography, like where would that storage happen? Would that be sort of at the top of the hill as you've described, or would it be somewhere
My
else?
envision would be on the right side of the building.
Okay.
Facing the building from 125?
Not on 125,
If you were seeing 125 to the left or the right?
to the right. So the plan is to have a parking lot here and an asphalt all the way around the side that wraps around to the back for easy offloading of equipment. It'll come through the 2 buildings and come back out. So there could be some storage right here too. It all depends on how the topography lays out. To the left of this building would be an appropriate spot too, a flat spot for us to store equipment. It would be my preference to have it all inside though. It just depends on how much storage we need for our materials. But if we can pull it off, we're putting everything inside just to save the value of our equipment.
You heard about the fire hydrant. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know where what side of the road the main water is on. We plan on boring underneath the highway for sewer, and I don't know if the water line is over there. If the main water line is on our side of the road, that's not a terrible task to undertake. If it is on the other side, it is. So, because they require such large mains for fire hydrants.
Now you're talking about the buffer around the back stuff you're going to use I heard that there. What type of vegetation are you putting?
There's already vegetation there.
I mean, as far as up near where your building's at?
Just whatever landscaping that our landscaping guy comes up with. We don't have a landscape plan. The building will be about 20-something feet tall.
In your application, you had mentioned, or perhaps in a subsequent email, actually, you had mentioned being particularly interested in the C3 designation because of you didn't want to sort of foreclose additional opportunities like a wholesale supply house, a lumber yard, or a trucking business.
Correct.
Are those things that you anticipate moving into at some point?
I can see myself going into wholesale of some sort, so I don't want to remove myself from having that option.
And what would be the wholesale? Like what would you?
Construction,
Construction.
construction materials.
Okay, how about like a lumber yard?
That would be, I don't plan on being a lumber company, but we build decks and a lot of them. And so it would not be out of our realm to store or buy in bulk deck materials and store on site,
And that would be stored outside or inside?
outside.
Outside. And then how about the third thing I think was mentioned was a trucking business. Is that
I'm not interested in the trucking business.
But you'd have several trucks.
That's right. I'm not in the sole trucking business, but we do have several trucks, yes.
Not how many vehicles would you have there for storage?
We've got 15 or 20 in the fleet right now. A lot of vans, a lot of smaller trucks.
but you aren't anticipating storing that fleet somewhere else, like everything would be stored here on this.
Unless a employee has the option to take the vehicle home.
Okay.
And which is a lot of our employees. But right now at our current headquarters, there are no vehicles stored in front of the building. There are a few stored in the back.
You had mentioned that you don't have any heavy equipment at the moment, right? I thought I had read somewhere that there was the potential for heavy equipment. Is that something you anticipate expanding into?
Not currently. We're a holding company. We own construction businesses.
Sure.
If a company that is like other construction came to me and asked me to buy, I'd look at it, which they would fall under the heavy equipment category. Again, I don't know if the site, it's not really our plan for the corporate headquarters to have a construction site like that. But I can't answer that question now. But it is anything in construction or services we would be interested in. So we don't currently have any heavy equipment.
But a C3 would permit that, right?
Yes. Yeah. So a C3 allows for things like that, the outdoor storage, the equipment being outside, and what that protects us from is having to either get variances or anything like that for those things.
Sure. We've sort of walked through a number of different possibilities, right? This is sort of a blank slate, so it's understandable that there's opportunities and you don't know what the future will bring. But I wonder if you had considered at all or would consider rezoning the property into a planned unit development. So that even though we're starting with an office building here, as your company develops, those kinds of changes could sort of be taken one at a time.
I think the issue with the PUD option is that there's a time frame on it.
Time frame?
In your zoning resolution.
You're talking about the 12 months?
Yes. And it reverts right back to ag if I don't build them within, or I don't get the project complete in 12 months.
If construction isn't
Started in 12 months.
Yeah. When do you anticipate construction starting?
It all depends on when my building sells. My initial thought was 2 years. Could be 1 year. It all depends on our current situation.
Okay. Other than the sort of time frame you just mentioned, is there any other hesitancy with a consideration of a planned unit development?
I'm not familiar with them. All of the developments that I'm familiar with are all already residentially zoned lots.
Any more questions?
Yes, a lot.
Sorry. Yeah,
You sound
but
better.
I think that's all the questions I have for now. So thank you so much. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
And for being here.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so at this time, we're going to move forward with public testimony pertaining to this matter. Just a reminder, we are just talking about the zoning case at hand. So we're gonna, in order to sort of help things move as smoothly as possible, we're gonna divide in groups. So we will first hear from those in support of the zoning map amendment, those opposed to the zoning map amendment, and then those sort of having that neutral position that just generally want to offer comment. We will have, each speaker will have 5 minutes to speak. There won't be a cap on any particular group, right? Just each speaker will have 5 minutes. And remember that when you're speaking, please direct your comments to the board. The board may ask you questions, but we ask that you keep your comments to the board. So with that, we'll start with, so I've got a list here. Okay. Let's start with, I guess, can I get a feel for how many people would like to speak in favor of the development? Well, that makes it simple. Yeah, we'll move. What we'll do then is we'll move to those in opposition. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with the adjoining property owners. And I'm just gonna sort of call you down the list here. So let's start with Mr. Jeremy Powers, please.
Show up early, you have to go first, I guess.
That's the way it works.
Done my best to get this to 5 minutes, and I think I can do it.
All right. Appreciate that.
Good evening, my name is Jeremy Powers. My wife and I own the property located at 2901 Burke Road. I've spoken with each of you trustees one at a time over the last few weeks. You know my opposition to the zoning change. My comments tonight, I'll be addressing to you, are also here to explain to the public and the applicant why I am opposed. A quick history of this application. The initial zoning commission met on December 3rd. The adjoining property owners were permitted to speak, and all the neighbors at that meeting were in opposition to the change. On December 20th, the zoning commission held a second meeting. The applicant provided a revised map and addendum to the zoning commission. Copies were not provided to the neighboring property owners nor shown to us at that time. At that time, the zoning commission voted to recommend a zoning change. In the final week of December, you, our trustees, committed to promoting our zoning inspector from part-time to full-time. You acknowledged the need for more time to vet and enforce zoning in the area. You, our trustees, also voted to engage a third party to develop a new zoning code book and a new land use map. You presented to be presented to the public later this year. In short, after the recommendation of the zoning commission regarding this application, you have acknowledged that the zoning inspector needs more time to properly evaluate zoning changes and that the zoning code and our approach is badly outdated. On January 11th, I met with Rusty Durbin at my home to discuss my concerns, especially my concerns using a 1997 study that was never filed with the county for viewing before I purchased my property. On January 23rd, I met with John Wilson at my home to discuss the same concerns. On January 24th, my neighbor provided me with a copy of the amended application that was provided to the zoning commission on the 20th. I understand now that that was available on the 18th, but I was unaware. The amended application showed several changes, including the location of the building, the number of buildings, and references to outdoor storage of building materials, outdoor storage of heavy equipment. More on this in a moment. On January 25th, I met with Kristen. Now, with the additional information from the amended application that we had not been made aware of before, my concerns were more specific to the intention to allow outdoor storage and hauling businesses on this property that is currently surrounded by residential properties. With that quick history of this application for zoning change out of the way, please allow me to clarify the more significant objections of the intended use provided. The most objectionable parts were provided after the December 3rd meeting, our last opportunity to speak on this matter, and are as follows. Directly from the application, section 7, quote, there is a strong possibility that Axel Enterprises will use some of the site as a storage yard, end quote. Quote, we would like to preserve the right to operate a wholesale operation on this property, end quote. Second to last page of this packet, the new packet, section 16, quote, large equipment storage. Store construction equipment outside and designated fenced-in area on the property. Section 17, store lumber and other large supplies in designated fenced-in area on the property, end quote. As best I can find, here's a list of the current C3 or more intense commercial properties in Tate Township. 3021 State Route 125, 1.76 acres. This is the shopping center where Ace Hardware is currently located. 3040 Sugar Tree Road, 5.3 acres. This is Morgan Plumbing at the corner of Sugar Tree and 125. 3131 South Benham Road, 14 acres. This is the incomplete and now halted storage unit development on State Route 125. 2461 State Route 125, 5.7 acres. This is where Gullet Septic Services has been since, I don't know, as long as I can remember. That is it. Those are the only 4 examples. You will note that the only one that is more than 5 acres is, in my opinion, a good example of why the township needs to slow down and needs to change how, when, and where we allow intense commercial development to be considered. With history and context out of the way, I'd like to focus on this word that keeps popping up apparently on social media: invest. The definition of invest is to expend money with the expectation of achieving profit or material result. Investing is a morally neutral activity. Sometimes investing means everyone wins. Sometimes investing means most people win. And sometimes investing means that very few people win. To look at another word, take. Take is to get into one's hands or into one's possession, to seize. You are considering taking from me, taking from my enjoyment of my home, taking from my ability to see the stars, taking from the ability to have a silent cup of coffee on my back deck, taking from my children's enjoyment of Poplar Creek, taking from my property value, taking many things. One last definition, if you'll indulge me: to give. To give is to freely devote, set aside, sacrifice for a purpose. The neighbors of this property are very big on giving. The most directly affected neighbors include a former substitute teacher, a former school aide, a former school team coach, an advocate that has argued diligently against solar farms and clear cutting of trees. In my own family, we've given time and money to Empower Youth, CASA, Child Focus, and a handful of other local organizations focused on local children and families.
Are you almost done?
I'm almost done.
Finish now.
I'd ask that you not take from us. Don't motivate to reconsider our place being here. In conclusion, the township should be careful when considering the placement of any C1, C2, or C3 zoning. I'd like to see C2 and C3 properties be especially limited to planned locations on an updated land use map at appropriate intersections and placed in a PUD to empower long-term value creation. Specific to this application for zoning map amendment, this would be the second largest C3 property in the township, in a location that is surrounded on all sides by family homes with the majority of acreage to be used for outdoor storage of heavy equipment and construction supplies. You would be taking from those of us that have spent years giving to your school, your charities, and your churches, and I would ask you to vote against it.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Elizabeth Powers.
You only have 3 minutes.
I can make it quick. I'm used to it. Sorry. I'm Elizabeth Powers. I'm at 2901 Brook Road. I have a lot to say on the matter, but for the sake of simplicity, I've condensed it. Obviously, I'm sorry. It's a very emotional, it's all very emotional for us, just as for the rest of our neighbors. This is the place my husband and I chose to raise our family in peace and quiet, and the thought of that peace and quiet being taken away has been in the front of my mind constantly. Our property is directly behind the parcel in question. Roads on either side of the parcel consist of residential and agricultural properties. To put C3 property right in the middle of all the residences makes no sense at all. The applicant's not just going to put a nice looking administrative building on the 11-acre property. The addendum dated December 10th states a strong possibility for storage yard, and he would like the right to operate a wholesale operation. In addition, there would be large material storage for lumber and other large suppliers outside in a fenced-in area, as well as small and large construction equipment storage outside in a fenced-in area. The different maps the applicant provided shows multiple buildings for multiple uses. The quality of life for the surrounding neighborhoods would drastically change. Right now, we all have pretty views of the woods, the creek, the fields.
If this goes through, we'll all be looking out our windows at the construction materials dumpsters, both large and small construction equipment and commercial trucks. Traffic, which is already a challenge, will be even worse with construction trucks and equipment coming off of and going on to State Route 125. We'll be hearing the noise that comes with all of the businesses being run on the property all day. Businesses need to protect themselves from theft, which means large, ugly fences and bright lights around the property at all times, day and night. The surrounding neighborhoods will also be a risk for theft. Our property values will drop a meaningful amount. Loss of residential property value due to commercial development is common. There is currently no comprehensive land use and economic development plan for Tate Township. I do understand that you have hired a firm to create one. I ask you wait for it to come back and see what it recommends so we don't end up with a stretch of, like we have from 125 going through Amelia down through State Route 222. The whole process so far has felt chaotic and rushed, with very little thought put on the impact of our neighborhoods until recently. People talk about progress, about growing our community. I'm all for progress. My family is for progress. We're part of this community and we want to see it thrive. But is it really progress when it negatively impacts residents, families, and surrounding properties? This isn't about the applicant and the businesses he runs. It's about the appropriate use of the land that's surrounded by homes, where people go for refuge and peace. A real plan that shows how to accommodate the growing community is what is needed, not to rezone here and there when various opportunities come up. Since a new plan is in the works, it makes sense to wait a few more months and evaluate the new plan rather than hurting the whole neighborhoods.
Mr. Durbin, is there any way possible that you could turn that up? I've got my hearing aids on full blast. I didn't hear a word she said.
Is that better?
Wasn't turned on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so the next person listed here is Greg Schuler.
I'm not ready to say anything right now.
Okay. Do you want me to call you at the end? Okay. All right, so the next individual is Kathy Newman, please.
Okay.
I've got a lot of stuff here. Let's see what I have. I want it entered into the public record as correspondence. Who do I give that to? I'll deal with that later at the end, I guess. I'll set my little timer too here. Okay, I can see. Sorry. Well, I know that this is going to work. Well, I guess you'll just have to tell me. All right. Is this good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I am Kathy Newman, former retired English teacher, media specialist, technology coordinator, 25 years at Grant Career Center, invested in this community. As the crow flies, I'm probably about 400 feet from property line to property line. One of my concerns is, I'm just be talking to you guys, is depreciation of property valuations. Burke Road and Macedonia Road have over $6.5 million of property valuations. That's with the highest house being $651,000. the noxious byproducts of this commercialization is going to send a message for future home investors that building in Tate Township comes with inherent risk, with no expectations that elected and appointed officials will be considerate of homeowners, and prices will go down. My other big concern is that it's going to disrupt the peace and tranquility. Poplar Creek and 125 is not a buffer. Neither one is a buffer. The anomaly of the acoustics of the hollers and the creek actually intensify the sound. The noises, the sights, the smells, the toxic substances could be horrendous. The heavy equipment loading and unloading, forklifts beeping, beep, 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 metal on metal grating, construction materials lying around, lights glowing across the horizon, making stargazing and an otherwise dark sky untenable, diesel smells and smoke belching, chemicals leaching into the earth and creek. And once this property is rezoned, anything permitted in C3 zoning is possible. We need to consider the worst case scenarios. And the precedent of officials denying zoning change has been set. There's Oxshire was denied for his property possibly being a nuisance material when he wanted to put a mulch yard there on his property. And Tate Township can do better and restrict the laws that we do have. I went through Axel's proposal and I didn't find anything of much value. The first 4 pages were benefits to his company. And he did talk a little bit about sewers, and I found out that septic systems are very viable and lots of pros and cons. And I have all kind of addendums on my longer letter that I sent to you. The zoning department has submitted a summary and recommendation, and I respectfully submit that the zoning officials have erred because they have not fully considered or studied the ramifications, especially to the adjacent and nearby home dwellers. You trustees have an ethical duty to protect us homeowners rather than to change things so that land can just make the most money possible. And basically that's what this change is about, making money for business and or its backers. Trustees have no obligation to accommodate an entity to ensure capital gains on an investment piece of property. Trustees do have an obligation to ensure zoning laws protect residents. Too many questions have been raised, and they're listed in some of my questions in there. Trustees, whom we citizens have given as our representatives trust, have the responsibility, the duty, the obligation to ensure that zoning laws continue to protect your constituents. To change laws to benefit a business, corporation, or entity that hopes to financially gain at the expense of residents whose peace, harmony, and well-being is threatened by these unnecessary changes is unconscionable. I'm going to try to read Kelly Falwell's letter. As a landowner on Macedonia Road and a longtime Bethel resident, I'm strongly opposed to the proposed zoning change put forth by Axel Enterprise for these reasons. The risk posed to the natural habitat, including diminished land use by native plants and animals, and the potential for contamination to leach into the soil and to the water of Poplar Creek, the high probability of noise and light pollution that will lessen the quality of life for nearby residents, and finally, as a result of the aforementioned points, as well as multifarious other reasons, a decrease in my property value, and a chilling effect on future home ownership in the area. Surely the trustees' first obligation is to protect the rights and investment of existing land and homeowners of Tate Township. Is it not? The community that elects the trustees has faith that trustees will serve them before serving other outside interests. By promoting businesses that can potentially harm current residents, trustees are betraying their oath as a public servant. Promoting businesses that have the possibility of bringing in money based on speculative plans, but the certainty of bringing in noise and light pollution is a bad bet. There's no guarantee that the business will do what it claims it will do. Nothing that binds them to doing what they say they will do. What is for certain is that if Axel Enterprises granted this exception, nearby homeowners will suffer. Their quality of life will suffer. Their pocketbooks will suffer. Approving the zoning change will decrease the value of the land I own and will create a chilling effect by discouraging new home construction in Bethel. We are uniquely situated within a short commute to Cincinnati, and we should take advantage of this by promoting the needs of homeowners over the needs of a speculative, vague, unbinding business plan posited by Axel. I beseech you to do your ethical duty and take care of the needs of the existing residents rather than be hoodwinked into believing the underbaked proposal of a business that is trying to change the way of life for Bethel citizens who have worked hard to afford their homes and want to protect their investments. Thank you. Sorry, I went over. I could have talked for an hour.
You did just read the letter, Chris Boswell, correct?
No, Chris is
Oh,
here.
Chris is here. I'm so sorry if you.
No, I have lots of other letters though, but I'll submit them, but if anybody wants to read them. I got one from a med school student, she's graduating med school. That was very touching. Lived here all her life.
Okay, hey, I'm Christopher Fogwell. I own property on 2935 Macedonia. I'm a resident at 2929 Macedonia. I've lived here for most of my life since I was about 8 years old. I've lived in various states and places like Las Vegas, Nevada, for one. Yet I choose to call Bethel my home. I want to see Tate Township maintained as a rural area. Therefore, I am opposed to the zoning request change from agriculture to C3 commercial. The rural living of this area gives me comfort. Driving in from a urban to suburban area, I feel a little sense of relaxation as I drive past farmlands, fields, and homes many species. I question what the effect of zoning change would have on this land, the farmers, the wildlife, earth, its land, oil, water, and air. Changing the zoning would set a bad precedent because of the negative effects of C3 development to contribute to noise, light, sound, and other environmental pollution while taking valuable farmland out of service. As an outdoorsman, I'm concerned for the wildlife. These animals need space, habitat, and corridors for them to travel through. Changing this agricultural land to commercial would take away more land from displaced animals. For conservation's sake, we should be good stewards of the land. We in Tate Township are a microcosm of the world of the growth the planet is experiencing. Our area has become more congested, noisier, and more hurried, impacting the lifestyle that I and so many others in this area wish to live. Tate Township should work to keep the area tranquil and a place unburdened by the hustle and bustle of larger places. Changing the zoning will not measurably benefit us. Through zoning, Tate Township has the ability to keep agriculture, which is what the country needs. So please vote no. Protect our land and our environment and the lifestyle that we have right now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jennifer Schinkel.
Hi. Good evening. Jennifer Schinkel, 2904 Burke Road. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight regarding an important issue affecting our entire community. Commercial zoning is coming to Bethel and the surrounding area, and I do believe that this needs to happen. However, this change is being implemented without any updated study, research, or plan for land use. There's no record of an adopted land use plan along State Route 125 filed with Batavia. The township needs a plan to protect both current and future property owners from unexpected zoning changes such as this. Before purchasing the property along Burke Road, several of us visited the county offices to search for these records, only to find that none existed, and to this day, they still don't exist. Not having a plan has led to spot zoning. You may have noticed sporadic and inconsistent rezoning changes along 125 and these have resulted in a disorganized landscape of businesses. This spot zoning has created challenges for our township, for its leaders, for its residents, and for some business owners. As defined by planning.org and Cornell Legal Information Institute, spot zoning refers to the reclassification of a small parcel of land to a zoning category that differs from surrounding property, often to benefit a single property owner. In this case, the property in the application definitely differs from the surrounding property by 350 degrees residential home, 10 degrees historical cemetery. Additionally, it borders the second largest creek feeding into East Fork's William Harsha Lake, a vital source of drinking water for our neighboring Batavia Township. Furthermore, the applicant has no current investment in the property. While rezoning denial may be a disappointment for the applicant, it does not create financial hardship. As a young, successful entrepreneur, there are certainly more appropriate locations for his development needs. According to the codelibrary.amlegal.com, land best suited for C3 zoning includes areas with access to primary roads at the intersections. However, approving this rezoning would create significant hardship for many tax-paying property owners, while home values and quality of life would be directly impacted. During a recent zoning hearing, 2 appointed zoning commissioners stated that our property didn't matter, a position that contradicts their responsibility along with the assessments of real estate professionals and online sources. I understand that a new zoning study is in its early stages, which is a positive and necessary step. So proceeding with additional spot zoning changes, especially C3, which allows for high-intensity commercial use without an established land use, is simply irresponsible. A C3 permit is a wide range of commercial use far beyond what has been portrayed on the social media. While a polished office building has been suggested, the applicant states he wants C3 zoning for future development opportunity on this property. Since no restrictions were placed on this rezoning, an office building could be constructed, but then later joined by a trucking company. Due to no sufficient buffer, back and front yards will be looking into the potential C3 developments of this property could be millwork and prefabrication facilities, a noise pollution infraction, distributing and trucking operations, causing traffic congestion with no turning lane due to the bridge, gas stations posing a risk to Papa Creek, storage yards, lumber yards, heavy equipment storage, razor wire fencing, dumpsters, shipping containers, and deteriorating equipment. Such developments could seriously impact property values, create safety concerns, and harm the overall appearance of our community. So let's be responsible. Our community has already shown its desire for change. We have changed leaderships. We have voted for better futures. Now we must also change how we approach development. Before any further rezoning occurs, we must establish, adopt, approve, and file a comprehensive land use plan. This is the only path forward that ensures responsible growth while protecting the interests of residents and business owners alike. So I'm really asking, what's the hurry? I strongly urge the township to deny this zoning request, and just to remember that let's not let old mistakes set precedents for new mistakes. Thank you.
You say Crick. I heard you say Crick.
I'm gonna bring a blanket next time.
The next speaker is Mr. Tim Jingle.
I'm gonna bring a blanket. My
My name's Tim Schenkel. I live at 2904 Burke Road. Appreciate the opportunity to provide input on this zoning request. I'm going to start with it. I strongly oppose rezoning this lot to C3, which is the most unrestricted zoning classification in Tate Township. Given that this lot is probably not even suitable for C2 zoning, granting a C3 designation would be extreme and entirely inappropriate. Furthermore, even a C1 designation would require substantial development restrictions to protect Tate Township residents and the surrounding environment. Reasons this lot is not viable: the surrounding land uses. Property is surrounded approximately 350 degrees by land, residential land, with the remaining 10% occupied by a historic cemetery. The negative impact on residential property owners: approximately 14 residential properties in close proximity will experience significant property value declines as their front porches and back decks will face directly into this commercial development. Insufficient buffer zone. The current buffer zone is inadequate for commercial zoning without significant restrictions. Additionally, the primary buffer exists on adjacent landowners, not the proposed lot. For much of the year, we don't have any tree cover and there is literally no buffer. Environmental concerns. The property is bordered 270 degrees by Poplar Creek, the second largest watershed feeding in the East Fork. The water management sediment control guidelines recommend a 50-foot buffer around a creek this size. The zoning board, they failed to include any buffer requirements as part of this rezoning proposal, disregarding any environmental safety concerns. The zoning standards do not support C3 designation, and C3 zoning is intended to be clustered around major intersections, which this property is not. The applicant's original application states that C3 zoning is requested to ensure unrestricted future development opportunities. If approved, this property could be used for any high-intensity commercial purpose in the future, including supply yard, trucking business, both of which would be completely inappropriate in a residential setting. The applicant also stated in the meeting that he intends to build cabinets on the site, which introduces concerns about additional noise and environmental contamination. I have concerns about the approval process, failure to protect property values. One of the zoning commission's primary responsibilities is to protect property values for Tate Township residents. However, their decision failed to fully consider the impact of this rezoning on affected homeowners. In fact, residents were told their property doesn't matter. Lack of transparency and public input. Following the initial rezoning meeting, the applicant was granted a continuation to provide updated information. However, Tate Township residents in attendance were denied the opportunity to provide input on their applicant's revised plan. The zoning commission is responsible for representing community interests, and blocking residents' input on updated plans is unacceptable. Reliance on an outdated study. The zoning commission bases its decision on a 30-year-old State Route 125 land use study, which was recently discovered in old files. This study has never been used as an official reference in previous zoning decisions, and it is not a zoning plan, it is merely a study. No formal plan was ever developed, approved by the trustees, or filed with the county. Significant development has occurred along 125 corridor over the past 30 years without an adopted zoning plan. A new zoning study must be conducted to reflect the current conditions along the corridor. Once completed, a comprehensive zoning plan should be developed, presented for public input, formally adopted by the trustees, and filed with the county, ensuring future property owners have access to a clear zoning framework. Approving this C3 zoning request without restrictions will directly conflict with any future zoning plans. Any well-developed plan should identify unique impacts and opportunities for each lot and include restrictions to minimize harm to neighboring properties. In conclusion, a well-planned community prioritizes smart zoning that supports business growth while protecting homeowners. A responsible approach to development ensures that high-intensity commercial properties do not directly back up to residential areas preserving property values and quality of life for residents. For these reasons, I strongly urge you to deny the application. Thank you for your time.
All right, the next individual is Sandy Howison.
My name is Sandy Howison, and I live at 2900 Burke Road. And what I just handed them was this, which shows that this little tiny circle here is completely surrounded by residential. Completely, all sides, across the road, all sides. This is completely surrounded. This is exactly what is known as spot zoning for one person. One person is going to get what he wants, and all of us are going to suffer for it. I was alarmed just a few minutes ago when you were asking him some questions, and he kept saying that he didn't want to limit his options. He might want to put semis out there. He might want to put construction stuff. He might want to have open storage. That's our backyards. That's our front yards. That's what we look at every day. And that's completely irresponsible for him to say his plans are one thing, but he reserves the rights to take it completely nuclear with C3. I want to know what kind of signage he's going to have. Is it going to be lighted? Is it going to be 24-hour lighted? Are we going to be looking at time and temperature and ads before we go to bed at night, shining through our windows? He says that his lighting is all going to be downlighting. Well, downlighting doesn't really help when you're dealing with the dark sky. I do a lot of astronomy. I have taken pictures of comets. I've taken pictures of the northern lights. And the picture that I got from the comet was taken directly from my deck. It was taken directly over where his property is going to be. There is no way I could have ever seen this with his even downlighting. There's too much night glow from that. Some residents of Burke Road are going to open their front doors and sit on their porch, and they're going to see the back end of his property. And he's already said he wants to put storage and open containers out there. There's going to be a backup. There's already backups on 125, and I know he says most of his people are coming from the other directions, but we don't need to make that worse. Another driveway is not what 125 needs, especially there. Especially for one person's business.